All right.
Ready?
Mhm.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Texas State Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors. Today is Friday, April 28th at 9:04 a.m. And we're meeting virtually today over Zoom. Let's do our introductions. Dr. Taylor.
Hello, my name is Dr. Christopher Taylor. I'm the Vice Chair of the LPC Board.
Thank you. Ms. Vanessa Hall.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vanessa Hall. I'm a public member.
Janie Stubblefield.
Good morning, Janie Stubblefield, licensed professional counselor and board approved supervisor, and I am a professional member.
Thank you. Dr. Amuna.
Dr. Amuna, Director, Student Wellness and Counseling Center, LPCS, professional board member.
Thank you. And Dr. Bradley.
Dr. Loretta Bradley, I'm a professional member, LPC, LPCS, and counselor educator, Texas Tech, although I'm not in Lubbock today. I'm coming to you from a hotel room. I'm out of town.
Well, we're glad that you were able to make it. We're still waiting on Brenda. When she hops on, we'll do a quick introduction for her. My name is Stephen Hallbauer. I'm the board chair. I'm a public member from Rockwall. And I will note the excused absence of Pastor Roy Smith.
Mr. Chair, if I may interrupt for a moment, Ms. Stubblefield did not give her full title. In fact, she left off her wonderful new award from Mental Health of America, the Pamela Blumenthal Award. Congratulations on receiving that. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Outstanding. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
So Christina, certify that we do have a quorum for today's meeting.
We do have a quorum.
Okay, and please do staff introductions.
Yes, my name is Christina DeLuna. I am the board administrator for the LPC board. We have Patrick Hyde, who is our general counsel. We have our two staff attorneys for the LPC board, Victoria Benitez and Kenneth Long. And then we also have Brenda Skiff, who's the executive assistant, and Tim Spear, who's the operations manager.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and get started. Number 3, application review or denial. Christina, confirm that we have none for today.
There are none.
Thank you. Possible action on orders by the board chair. Also confirm that we have none.
There are none.
Okay, Christina, number 5, the second quarter report, please.
Yes, so in your board packet material, there are 8 agreed orders that have already been executed by Executive Director Daryl Spinks. So those are already executed and no action needed by the board.
Board, any question over any of those orders? Okay, hearing none. Item 6. Yes, Dr. Taylor.
No.
Nothing, okay. Item 6, second quarter report, Christina.
So yes, all the reports are in your board packet material. There's the Q1 performance measure report, Q2 performance measure report, Q2 enforcement status report, and the Q2 complaint dismissal report. I also included for just your reference, the licensing data for February and March, just for your records on that. If there's any questions on any of those reports, just let us know.
Questions for Christina?
No.
Okay, then I will issue the blanket, keep up the good work. So thank you. Item 7, SOA matters. We will confirm that we have none for this morning.
Correct.
Thank you. Item 8, we did receive a petition for rulemaking. Patrick, can you kind of introduce what the petition entailed and the reasoning behind the proposed response, and then we'll open up for board discussion on the petition.
Sure. In your packet, you'll have the actual petition, and then I have a draft response that if it's acceptable to you guys, I'll mail it out as the response. I was assuming that you would want to deny, but if you want to take a different course of action, absolutely, you can certainly do that. You can discuss it today, but the short explanation is the petitioner wants to change the requirements to have an supervisor status from requiring 60 months of licensure in good standing to 36 months. They were basically arguing that, they felt like they should be qualified after that period of time, and it would help them, become a supervisor and help there be more supervisors. But going back and looking, this rule was changed back in 2016. And so I don't necessarily see that the board wants to do an about face and change it back after having been changed for that period of time. But so if acceptable, I could send this response denying the petition, but of course, if you have any questions about it, I'll be happy to answer it. But that's just the short version of what's in your packet.
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
Okay, my question is, what was the reason in 2016 that the rule changed? I don't remember. Is there data to show that there's a difference between 3 years and 5 years?
So I don't, but Dr. Taylor, sorry, are you going to answer that question? Okay.
Yeah, I can give some clarity on that. So we did a lot of research when we were looking into it. One of the original parts of the rule was that it was set, I think, at 2 or 3 years because of the grandfathering in of professional counselors. And when the license changed to the LPC board to licensed professional counselor and moved away from professional counselor, there was a concern that we wouldn't have enough supervisors to service the number of interns we had at the time, which are now associates. Also, we did a lot of looking and research in on this. And I mean, this does, I think, bring us into more of a national kind of standard where I think this is what most other states operate in. I believe it's also what LMFTs do as well. So I think there's some consistency in that. I could be wrong there, though. Don't quote me on that. And then also, the big discussion was the amount of responsibility we put on the supervisor. We just felt it to be very important for somebody to be in the field a minimum of 5 years. While we do love and respect the education part of it, going through a doctoral program in counseling myself, I can tell you, I think there is still more to be gained on the experience side outside of the academic add that you get in the counseling program. I think the great trade-off for getting a doctorate is that you don't have to do the 40-hour course. But I do feel firm on the experience requirements for those extra few years. So that way you're at least in the field fully licensed for 5 years before you take on an associate and start training them.
Yes, Dr. Bradley?
It may just be where I live. I don't know if it's true in the state. So I'll direct this question to Christina. Are we having trouble finding supervisors? We have that problem where I live in Lubbock. I'm not saying we can't find them, but it is an issue. Is that just West Texas, or is that throughout the state of Texas?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I haven't heard that there's a lot of difficulty. The one big thing to remember, though, is that the supervision doesn't have to be in person. And so it's something that can be virtually. So even if they can't find a supervisor in the city or town they live in, they can reach out to someone who is in another area to still provide that supervision.
I agree, but I don't know why. It seems like people are looking in that area. But as I said, it may just be that. So Dr. Taylor, you're saying other states require 5 years? I mean, do we know? I mean, I know some states that do, and I know some that don't, so I don't have any stats on what's the percentage here.
Yeah, Dr. Bradley, I don't have that in front of me. It's just what I recall from that meeting we had, several years ago when we changed the rule up to 5. That was sort of part of the discussion, is this is more of a national standard moving up. I agree with you. I think that some states require 5, some don't even have a supervisor track, some
That's true.
licensed, you're good to go. They have the 2-year license system. So I know there is kind of a Wild West component out there, but I think what we saw when we looked at it was consistency amongst what we saw in the associate hours, moving from, 1,500 or 2,000 up to 3,000 nationally. And so, we've started to see more and more states do that. And so, it seemed like at the time that was the appropriate course of action. Now, I could, things could have shifted and changed. So it might not be a bad idea for us to pull that data again, but I see a lot of value in it being 5 years. As to the difficulty of finding a supervisor, I believe, Christina, do you know how many licensed supervisors we have right now?
I can check.
Yeah, I want to say it's close to the number of associates we have. So it shouldn't be that difficult, statistically speaking, to find somebody. Now, I know there are always going to be rural communities. There's always going to be challenges with a state our size, just from a geographic standpoint. But I mean, there is no limit to the number of associates a supervisor can take on. So statistically, if we have 1,000 supervisors and 3,000 associates, I mean, that should work out. If all things were equal and we lived in a perfect world, so which we don't.
It looks like there's a little over 6,000 LPC supervisors.
So we have double the amount of supervisors that we have associates. So that means for every associate, one supervisor is doing nothing. So, I feel like we got space there. Now, of course, that didn't take into account who is, who's retiring or not taking on new ones. I'm sure that's an X factor in there, but 2 to 1 seems like good odds to me.
Go ahead, Dr. Amanda.
I'll actually defer to Patrick because I'm going to reference something Patrick said. So if you wanted to go first, Patrick, I saw your hand up.
I just was gonna what Dr. Taylor had mentioned the other boards and what their requirements were. I was just going to point to it. For MFTs to become a supervisor, you need to have a minimum of 3 years. For social workers, you need to have a minimum of 2 years. And for psychology, there is no supervisor status. So there's no requirement for that. But I don't know about what the other states do.
And then social work has like a 3-tier system though, right?
Mhm.
Well, right, but you can get supervisor status on the different types of licenses. You have to have 3,000 hours over at least 2 years. So you could have it over a longer period of time, but the minimum is 2 years of that experience required for it. But it's not just any experience. It's like supervised experience to gain supervisor status for that. Oh, the one other thing I was just going to add is I don't know. The preamble doesn't go into the specifics about the reason for the rule change, Dr. Bradley, but anecdotally, I believe a lot of people discussed or think that the reason for the change was a hope to address complaints, that there used to be a lot more complaints, and the hope was that having more supervisors or better supervisors with more experience would drive down complaints, I guess.
I know, I am also LMFT supervisor. I think that's 3 years.
You're correct. It's the time requirement for LMFTs is 3 years.
That's what I was thinking. I've been an LMFT supervisor so long, I didn't remember for sure.
Yeah, there's another way to do it if you're a doctoral candidate, but the time period is 3 years.
I was just going to add with regard to the specifics of the letter of the person asking, they do mention the amount of experience that they had, but it's pre-licensure. And so I think that can be kind of murky territory too, if we, take in consideration the amount of experience someone had pre-licensure, because there's a different amount of accountability before you are licensed in what you're doing versus the accountability you have after you're licensed. And so I'm licensed in multiple states as a supervisor, and kind of to Dr. Taylor and Dr. Bradley point, there are some states where it's the Wild Wild West and there's minimum requirement, and there are some that are as stringent as Texas with regard to being a supervisor. And so I always think that at this point, without good justification and a data field justification, that if we're exceeding the standard, that's not a bad thing with regard to our 5-year requirement.
Yeah, I agree, Doctor. And I would have concern if we only had 300 supervisors and 3,000 associates, then I think that would be a little bit more of an issue. But with the number of supervisors that we have right now, it seems like that should not be a significant enough barrier to entry. Now, that being said, I know we are going to discuss the Uvalde report later this morning. And this is something we can absolutely put on the docket for our 4-year rules review coming up, which I believe we're doing this fall. Is that right, Christina? Do you know?
I believe it's early next year. Is that right, Brenda? Yeah,
Early
early next year.
Early next year, and we can kind of take a good look at anything that's creating a barrier to entry for the field. While also maintaining our eyes on, minimal standards and making sure we're not, diluting the profession as well.
Okay.
So I think, Patrick, we concur with what you've written.
I will have to ask for a motion on whether we will accept the draft response that Patrick put together. Is there any motion to accept the response?
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
Second.
Dr. Taylor and Janie with the second. Okay, we do now have a motion that is on the table. Is there any discussion regarding the motion specifically? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of accepting Patrick's proposed draft response to this petition, please raise your hand and signal aye.
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 Okay, and all opposed, same motion. And Dr. Bradley, did you wish to
I'm
abstain?
gonna abstain. I need more information.
Okay. So Patrick, that does pass. Dr. Bradley chose to abstain. Okay, moving on. Dr. Taylor kind of alluded to it. Agenda item 9 is discussion to the Uvalde report. This has already been addressed at the BHEC level. I'll talk a little bit about it during the BHEC update. But what essentially came out of the discussion at the BHEC level is that each of the member mental health boards has been given the following directive, and I'm going to read it to you. Are there specific areas in each mental health board's rules that the members would like to consider or review? And that's in regards to a general instruction from the Uvalde report that we look for ways to streamline our licensure. It is the emphasis is increasing access to mental health and increasing the number of mental health professionals. So you kind of have those two objectives in mind. The overall objective out of the Uvalde report, increasing access, increasing number of mental health professionals, but how it applies to our board specifically and to our other sister boards. Are there specific areas in our rules that you would like to consider, that you would like to look at, that perhaps a change in those rules further the overall objective. That's the order, that's the directive that came out of the BHEC discussion on the Uvalde report. Dr. Taylor, you were part of the BHEC meeting. Anything that you want to add to that?
No, I think that sums it up, Mr. Chair. I know we had a wonderful conversation about it, and I know the other boards are, eager to get involved in this process to see what we can do to increase access to mental health care. I know that's something that we're all very passionate about. We also want to make sure that we're not, being short-sighted and, reducing quality of care while increasing quantity of care. So I definitely know that we're going to take a look at all of our barrier rules. So rules regarding testing, rules regarding licensure, rules regarding academics. We'll look at everything for sure, as we do every 4 years. And we'll keep access in mind, and we'll special attention to that as we go through this rules review. And I think until then, I'd like to encourage all of our board members to do your own rules review. Sit down, crack it open, dust off all the dust, the cobwebs, and let's get into it. And if you got an area you think just needs to be written better, let's make sure Patrick has stuff to do. Always worry you don't have enough work to do, Patrick.
Dr. Taylor and I, during BHEC, we both had the same comment that we feel as though in regards to professional counseling, Texas joining the counseling compact would go a long way to achieving these objectives. And we did stress that. As we've discussed many times, the board feels as though the membership in the compact is beneficial for Texans. And so we did stress that at the BHEC level, because we do both believe, and I think this is a shared opinion amongst board members, that Texas membership in the compact goes a long way to achieving those objectives that we've received in that report. So we have that in mind. We'll talk about the compact and where it stands a little bit later in the meeting, but that was a big consideration in regards to LPCs. We did get that out there and how we feel as though, hey, you're telling us that this report says, let's do this. And we're saying, well, we have a bill pending in the legislature right now that goes a long way to achieving those objectives. So one more time, I will read the specific directive. Are there specific areas in the LPC rules that board members would like to review, would like to consider, that they feel as though examination of that rule serves the overall higher objective that we received out of the BHEC report, increasing access, increasing availability, and that's our objective.
And Mr. Chair, I'd also like to applaud our board members and our hard work before COVID as well. If you recall, we I think we were the first mental health board to just open up telehealth to all of our providers for 100% for treatment, 100% for supervision, and 100% for CEs. So I think that definitely speaks a long way. And I know that we are very focused on creating as much accessibility in the state as we can. So I'm happy to say that we've already done a lot of that work. And me, somebody wants to give me a green light to start changing stuff. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we can do for increased access to care.
Yeah, I'll add, just reading the report where it kind of speaks to the concern about the supervision pipeline and individuals not being able to get supervision prior to leaving the state as it may relate to military families. Just hearing the data this morning about the amount of supervisors we have, like that's a barrier that does not seem existent right now for us, in the sense of the quantity that people have access to, as it speaks to in the Uvalde report. Like we that's a check mark we get without even knowing, until finding out the numbers this morning.
Christina,
Yes.
100 million years ago, when I was looking for a supervisor, I went on the board site at that time, and there was like a literal, like, just exhaustive list of all the supervisors. Does that still exist?
That does. And it's updated weekly, and you can filter it so you can look in just your area. So it's a very helpful tool for LPC associates who are looking for supervisors.
Vanessa, did you have a question?
I did. When I read the report, I think I had one question from the perspective of not being a professional licensed counselor. I was just wondering, are there any specialized training that have eventuated from Uvalde that kind of help counselors support people who are in that type of crisis? Or is that crisis synonymous to sort of any other crisis that people go through, some of the principles and the universal symptoms that occur? Or were there any specific training to help supervisors and counselors and those people on the front line to be able to help people in crisis, specifically to like school shootings or things of that nature?
I can say just from my personal experience that not the Uvalde in particular, but when certain other crises related to school shootings happened, I just took it upon myself to go to training that specifically had trauma-related training, crisis and emergency situations. I remember even during Hurricane Katrina, I won't name a provider, but there's an online provider that sends me brochures every week that provided natural disaster related training to counsel people who had been through natural disaster. So I think in the day and age of YouTube for our clinicians, the training is there, it's available. Some you have to pay for, some you don't, but it's there readily available if you kind of dedicate yourself to getting trained for that population when these events happen.
Yeah. So Dr. Muna, are there specific like courses or training that the board would require people, like counselors to complete so that they can be competent in that area to help with trauma and crisis like that? Or is it just general courses that they need to take?
So right now, I think, and anyone can jump in right now, I think it's general courses related to things that happen, but I'm a firm believer that we have a rule because a thing happened. And school shootings and trauma are a thing in our state. And so that might be something we want to look at potentially addressing in our CEUs because it is such an unfortunate common occurrence. I think it would be worth a gander to see. It's not a mandate right now for a specific area. And I'll give the example of human trafficking. Because of our area and where we're geographically located, now that's a mandate. So we have a rule because of a problem, and school shootings is a problem. So it's possible that we could review CEUs that address that because of our area. Janie, your thoughts?
I was just going to say, I think it all begins at the academic level, and Dr. Muna and Dr. Bradley, you guys can certainly speak to the fact that a lot of the courses are trauma-informed courses. And so clinicians kind of get their baseline through their academia, and then they come into the profession and look for some of those niche trainings, many of which are trauma-informed, all your EMDR types of certifications. Lots of specialties have that. And so I think there's a lot of good trainings out there. I don't think it's a matter of not having access to training. I agree, Dr. Muna, that there's a plethora out there. It's just choosing how you spend your time.
Thank you all. Is there anything to add before we move ahead? Okay, I'll just leave it as this is going to be a standing agenda item moving forward. especially in regards to what shakes out the legislature with regarding the compact, our upcoming rules review. But until we either identify some key areas where we feel as though an effective change can be made, or if we get to the point where we feel as though changing a rule wouldn't really accomplish the overall objectives that we've received, I'm going to keep this on the agenda for now. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you think of something, reach out to Christina, reach out to me, and we'll bring it up for a broader discussion.
Yeah, and on that note, Mr. Chair, can we go ahead and schedule our four-year rules review now for early next year? And then we can go ahead and open an agenda item for that. And as members, read the rules and have items for consideration, they can add that to our agenda.
Go ahead, Patrick.
We're actually looking to do that right now, so it'd be better if we're trying to pick dates, so it'd be better if we come back and we can maybe talk about it next board meeting or something.
That will begin in January, correct?
It begins next year. I don't know. That's
That's what we're working on.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, if there's nothing else to add on agenda item number 9, we will go ahead and move ahead to number 10, which is rulemaking. Wanted to point out that our change to the informed consent requirements, that is continuing in the process. The key item here is that these were posted to the Texas Register on March 31st, and we are soliciting public comment regarding the proposed changes. Brenda, how long does that stay open for public comment?
It is open until April the 30th at 5 p.m.
Well, the clock is ticking, everybody. After the meeting today, if you feel as though you would like to make public comment regarding the change to the informed consent requirements, please do so. We always want to hear from our LPCs regarding the rule change. This one we feel was done in the best interest of our LPCs, but if there are concerns, maybe something that we hadn't thought about, please let us know. The board, to our credit, I know you guys read all of the comments that we do receive. So LPCs, anybody watching this on recording, please get those in. Christina, anything to add on that?
I can, if you want, I can show them now or at the my section. I wanted to show where they can go to find those and submit it. Okay,
Go ahead, please.
so I'm gonna share my screen here just so we can just clarify where the rules are now posted and all that fun stuff. So give me just a sec. Okay. Do you guys see the main BHEC website? Yes. Okay. So again, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. The main BHEC website, when you go to the right-hand side, the second option there is proposed rule changes and rulemaking process. So this is new. So that's why I want to make sure and get this information out there. This is the process that everyone has been asking for to kind of clarify what that process is. And it's also where you can find the current proposed changes and how to submit public comment. So this first section here is related to the BHEC proposed rules. If you keep scrolling down, it is by each board individually. So here's for the Texas LPC board. So these rules here are all the ones that are currently open. And you can, if you click on this first one, it's going to show you what the proposed language is. This second link is going to get you to submit your public comment. So we've tried to make it easy to access and easier to submit your comments. And like Chair Hallbauer mentioned, it's important to hear from you all because there may be something that the board members are not thinking of and your comment may trigger, oh, we do need to look at that or consider that part of it. So again, it's under the main BHEC website, right-hand side, proposed rule changes and rulemaking process. So that should be helpful to everyone related to the rulemaking process and submitting public comment.
And Christina, just wanted to remind the public that when you go in there to make comment, you'll need to comment on each rule separately, not if you have a comment on 681-35, you need to make the comment. And then if you have another comment on 681-205, you need to go in to that one and make a comment.
Thank you.
Board, any questions on that? Okay. Moving on, committee reports. We're going to start with our counseling compact. Dr. Muna, if you would kind of talk about what we discussed when our committee meeting met, and then I believe Dr. Bradley has some information that she'll add regarding some funding information that we received. So, Dr. Muna, we kind of talked about what we discussed in our committee.
Sure. I'll just give a little brief update that I believe it's about 20 to 23 states now that have joined the counseling compact. So that compact is moving along. Another thing that I'll share is that a couple of weeks ago, I believe that the committee kind of met regarding the counseling compact, and I believe that it's headed to the Senate. Somebody can correct me on that. Yes, sir.
The legislative status is that it was unanimously approved in House committee, where they did have a hearing. It was voted out of the House committee. It was sent to calendars, where it will be set for a floor vote in the House. That's the status on the House side of it. In the Senate, it's been referred to the Senate version of the same committee, but we have not had a hearing on it yet in the Senate. So there's progress being made. However, it still has a ways to go, and we are paying close. I check the website once or twice a day just to see if there's any updates, and Daryl's doing a good job of sending me texts whenever something changes. So we are on top of it, but it has a ways to go. Okay. Dr. Bradley, we kind of talked about what you found out at the ACA committee last week.
I'm a member of one of ACA's financial committees called the Audit Committee, and ACA has approved $1.2 million toward the counseling compact, and that's to help states as they pursue their own state joining the compact. I don't know how it will be allocated. 1.2 million sounds like a lot of money. We have 22 states now that have joined the compact, and another 20 states that are considering it. So, but anyway, it's good news. There is some money out there now.
I reached out to Daryl for some clarification on this, and his response that it is his understanding that these ACA funds are to cover startup costs and operating costs for the next 3 years. So that is good news. There's a lot of details that have to be ironed out, and it's kind of a weird situation because Texas is not a member. So we are on the outside kind of looking in, but it's the fact that these funds were allocated, it's an overall net positive for joining. But again, the details and the specifics, how those funds would be used, we're kind of on the outside looking in and kind of listening in on what's going on. Patrick, anything to add on that, or are we just kind of paying attention to it?
Yeah, it's just watching. I know I've watched some of the other counseling compact meetings, and one of the other, I think NBCC also was going to give some funds as well to the compact. So there's startup money being sent in from multiple sources, it sounds like, to try to get stood up, but they really don't have. It's really at the beginning stages. They only have one rule adopted, which is a rule on rulemaking, and they're debating other rules and things like that, and trying to get the compact set up. So I don't know when they will be operational, but they're clearly not operational right now, and there'll probably be some time before they are. But yeah, for us, it's just a holding pattern, waiting for the bill moving through the legislature and see where that goes.
And will you just kind of clarify for me? I know that we submitted a fiscal note. It was part of the House committee hearing on the compact, and we gave a estimated cost. Can these ACA funds be used for our costs, or are those completely separate?
No, that's a separate thing. That only goes to the compact. That doesn't go to the states. It's my understanding that that's really going to the interstate compact, not each individual state's costs. So
Okay.
you wouldn't see any of that. But I don't know. As for the fiscal note, I have to go back. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what all was done on that. So sorry, I'd have to go back and look.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just wanted for you to clarify where the line was on how these funds could be used or not used.
Yeah, it's my understanding these would not be funds that would go to individual states. They would be startup costs for the compact itself. I think one of the issues will be is it's going to need to create its own database system and computer systems, and getting staff or entering into some sort of contracts for staff. And so one of the things to draw a parallel with SciPac, the Psychology Interstate Compact, is they already had a data system in place with ASPPB that they could just use, help. They entered into an MOU with and were able to use. So their startup costs were easier, but in this instance, we don't really have that that framework. So it's building from the ground up, I think.
Okay. Janie, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure everybody listening reaches out to their representatives then, so we can continue to have our voice heard. That us as a board cannot get this across the line, that every single counselor needs to reach out to their respective representatives to make sure that we can get this across the line this legislative session.
Vanessa?
What will be the relationship between the compact and the board? Like, for example, LPC board, or the different boards that are in existence? Like, what is that relationship? Will that affect the relationship? Will these, I guess I'm trying to find out is, will the compact have any sort of jurisdiction or any challenges to the board, or is it just a privilege that the states have to come together and allow the different license boards to, license across state line? I hope my question makes sense.
It does. Dr. Amuna or Dr. Bradley, you want to kind of expand on that?
I'll defer to Dr. Bradley if she wants to go first.
Doesn't matter. It's my understanding that once you are permitted to join the board, the state remains in control. There will be a database. If a person has a problem, say in Alabama would alert Texas, and then it's Texas that would determine what happens, because it's the home state where the person is licensed that still remains in control of their licensure requirements. So I think our relationship to the compact, we would stay intact. And the first step, Vanessa, is if we get to join the compact, when you get to join the compact, there are 4 criteria that you have to agree to. That's 60-hour master's degree and so forth. And I was talking in a meeting about, 5 weeks or so ago with a person, and I gave his name to Chair Hallbauer. But basically, he was saying that there's a lot of concern, people who are currently licensed. For example, I asked him, I said, what do you think will happen with people who were licensed under 48 hours? And his interpretation was just exactly what I thought. There will be the grandparenting in. So if you're licensed in Texas, we join the compact, you retain your licensure. The board, I would think, would continue to function. Now we will have access to this new database. And, you know, that's a large database among the member states. And it really, I think, has the potential to protect the clients that our counselors are serving. I mean, we've got a large database and we have access to information among states, across states, that we haven't had previously. And I'll stop there. I mean, those I think are the basic things, but perhaps Dr. Amana, she probably has more to.
So what I'll add, and again, to kind of co-sign on Dr. Bradley, thank you for that, is essentially what that might look like tangibly, Vanessa, is a clinician is currently licensed in Texas. You are an LPC in Texas. Outside of being a part of the compact, if you had a client that you've been serving for 2, 3, 5 years here in Texas, and they moved to Alabama, legally, you're not allowed to counsel that person anymore. You have no right. So their continuity of care is done. And so what the compact will say is, you are a part of the compact. Alabama is a part of that compact. When your client moves to Alabama, you would petition via the compact to be a part of the Alabama licensing database without having to go through the full process of being licensed in Alabama off of your Texas license. So Texas saying, we're a part of the compact, we agree to the rules, we're vouching for Vanessa to be a part of your Alabama licensure. If she does something wrong in Alabama, Alabama only has the legal repercussions of taking your right to practice in Alabama. They can't come to Texas and take your license in Texas, but they can inform us of why they revoked your right to practice in Alabama. So Texas is your home state. They're the governing body, they're the authority. But by being a part of this group, this compact, you're allowed to practice wherever your client may be or wherever your new clients may come from without going through the rigorous process of being fully vetted and fully licensed in every single state, which is the case now. I hope that kind of helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Patrick, you did have your hand up. Did you have anything to add on that?
No, I think that covered it perfectly.
Okay. All right, anything else to add on the compact? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to the other committee meeting, and that is our Rules Committee. A couple items that we discussed. I'll do the second one first, but the Rules Committee did make a request of Daryl to see if if we could find funding in the BHEC budget in order to develop some educational materials, some educational brochures, because we are starting to send Christina out on the road a little bit more to kind of explain what the board does, what the board members do, our role, how they impact our individual LPCs. And so the overall objective was to have some educational material that she can take with her, that it hands out to people to kind of explain what we do, who we are the areas that we're responsible for, and then the areas that staff is responsible for. All too often, people kind of get, I guess, a little confused or definitely not certain about what is actually a staff assignment, what they're in charge of, and at what point it is a board member objective. And so we did request that Daryl to see if we could develop some materials. So Christina will be taken with her. The report was he's gonna take a serious look at it. Is that a good way to put it? I think that Daryl recognizes the value of that. And really, it's a reflection of the work Christina's doing, because she is making it a point to get to conferences, get to associations, both statewide and nationally. And so we see the value in a good clarification of the board's role, what we do. You know, nationally, it explains the way the Texas system works, because apparently everybody's always curious about VHEC and how that's going. But statewide, that's more of a direct information to our LPCs, so they know what is the purview of the board versus what is staff's responsibility. And it's in the interest of making everybody's lives a little bit easier. So they are, when LPCs have a question, they're reaching out to the appropriate people, and they're not contacting, if it's something that's out of our hands, they're not contacting us individually, which does happen. But they are, it's an educational objective. And so kind of keep that in mind. This is something that we'd like to produce, have just a really good product. And we're hoping this could take a year. We're hoping to come up with something that'll last us at least maybe like a 5-year period where it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds good.
that was the first objective of the Rules Committee. The second objective, this came to us from Dr. Taylor. He wanted a discussion on how we could add PhD credentials to a license that was earned after initial licensure. So Dr. Taylor, I'm going to hand it to you, kind of explain the need and the objective, and kind of what the hurdles are that we've got on this right now.
Can do, Mr. Chair. Just clarification though, that did not come from me. That came from a petition from a licensee from our last what presentation was it, Christina? Where was it? TASIS?
Yes, we were at the TASIS conference.
So that was not something, I don't want people to think like that. Was my agenda, yeah, so my understanding is that I guess since the change to from HHSC to BHEC is that we sort of are reworking the back end of how things are kept. One of the things we don't do anymore is we don't send out the renewal card. And as we try to move more into a paperless world and just create more efficiency, at HHSC you would just say, hey, I've got a PhD, I'd like to add that to my license, please. And then they would, a staffer would get that request. I don't recall if there was a fee or not. I think you had to pay for the new license. And then they would, print it and mail it to you. We don't have a process for that now at BHEC. So we are at a crossroads of if we want to make a process for that. If the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak, and what is the potential positive good for the field. One thing on my end is if I was a member of the public and I saw that somebody's license had PhD, I know I would feel confident this person has a higher level of education or specialty. So in that way, I do see value to the public, and as long as it's not a huge barrier, I think it's good to go. I am a lover of efficiency, but not for efficiency's sake. So, just because it takes us, a few more work hours every year to put these out, I don't think that's a strong argument not to do it. So I think if there is benefit to the public and there is benefit to the field, then, it seems to be sort of our purpose, our place to get that done. So does that kind of shed light on it?
Dr. Moon, go ahead.
I just have a question with regard to, I'm thinking in, again, other states where they've permitted to add the doctor to the license post licensure. And one of the main things that came to mind was restrictions on the doctorate. And so is that something that we would take in consideration? Definitely like field related, not doctorate of basket weaving, but I want to add that to my LPC licensure as opposed to PhD psychology, counseling, PsyD, something along those lines.
Correct, and that already exists in our rules. We're not changing anything from a rule perspective. We're just talking about a process that was not mapped out when we moved from one agency to another. So we're literally just talking about the logistics of receiving the request and then printing and mailing. The requirement for it to be in counseling is already present in our rules. So we would not allow them to present a doctorate in some other field, even if it might be closely related. And I think we see a lot of this when we look at religious degrees. There might be somebody with a PhD in, some type of ministry degree that then also wants to become a therapist. And so they might request to have that PhD on there. We will deny that request because that's not a counseling degree. So our staff is already trained up on that, and we already have the master's level, stuff for it. I think the issue that we run into is that, you do not need a doctorate to practice counseling. And as far as I'm aware, I don't believe there is a doctorate only program that has a master's wrapped into it for our profession at large, unless maybe Dr. Bradley, you know of one. But my understanding is you have to get your master's and then get your doctorate, unlike a psychologist who might be able to go and just go directly into the PhD program and get that, to where the master's kind of wrapped into the PhD. I don't know enough about that area though to make an intelligent comment, but so we issue the license because who graduates with a master's degree and said, hey guys, let me wait 4 more years before I get licensed. Like nobody does that, right? That's not just go and get licensed. Like you take the test, get licensed, and go direct into your PhD program if you'd like to. But yeah.
Dr. Bradley?
I agree with what Dr. Taylor said. I think that most programs, you obtain your master's degree and then you apply, you're admitted to your doctoral degree. I agree that this is an important issue. I believe that it is a benefit to the public to know if the person has a master's or a PhD. I'm not trying to say that a master's degree, I am trying to say that a person with a master's degree may be just as competent as a person with a PhD. But I will go back and say, in the public's eyes and perception's important, they should know from this license if it's a master's. I'd like to add a second comment. When counselors are on insurance boards, for example, this makes a huge difference in their reimbursement for many of these boards. We're talking money here, and I think we need to support our counselors to be able to obtain the amount of reimbursement for which they're qualified. And if this license doesn't say PhD, many boards will still reimburse them at the master's rate. And I think we need to help those counselors. I think we're in the business to make sure clients are getting the right services. But I think whenever counselors enhance their reimbursement in an economy as it is today, I think this is something else to look at. So I strongly support this.
And if I can add, I'm just thinking logistically, and it's easier for me to say on this end, the person who's not having to do the work, Christina, but I'm thinking logistically, the process of adding a supervisor designation online, someone just kind of goes in and they have their license, and then there's a tab below to add a designation. I wonder if that PhD can just be kind of implemented as another designation, just like LPCS, where they submit paperwork. Once it's processed, then they can get that designation added to their licensure as doctorate instead of reinventing an entire new wheel.
Yeah. And as far as I understand, that is something that Daryl is looking into, any options that we can try and do with this is what he's looking into. So, you know, from here, it's good to know the point of view of the board members. And I know that Daryl's continuing to work to see how, if we can make it happen.
I have one further question, Chair Hallbauer. One question is, it was done, and I know mine has the PhD on it, so it was done previously. We're not asking for something that's never occurred. Do you need a motion on this to show the support from the board?
Eventually, yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate at this time because the way we left it at Rules Committee is that the staff was gonna kind of give us an assessment of what is gonna be required on their end in order to make this a reality, and we were gonna factor that in to our instructions.
I would like to say that I agree with what Dr. Taylor said on this earlier. I really think that we have to look out for the interest of the persons that we are licensing, and that this PhD is something that enhances their license. So I don't find that the time for people to do that when it's so important, I don't go along with that issue. I think this is something that needs to be done to help clients and to help our persons who have the PhD.
I agree, Dr. Bradley, and interestingly, Dr. Taylor is making made an argument that I don't think came up in the Rules Committee discussion on this, in that there are times where someone gets a doctorate, but we don't, under our rules, we don't recognize it as a doctorate in counseling. And so in my opinion, it's kind of the public member perspective. I would want to know if my therapist has a doctorate in counseling as opposed to a non-counseling doctorate. And it seems to me that an approval and addition of PhD to the license shows that the board has signed off that this person does now have a doctorate in counseling. And I like that point, and I don't think that came up in the Rules Committee discussion on this.
I agree completely with you. I think it should say what the doctorate is obtained in, so that there's no question there when someone is seeking counseling, that they know that that is the credential. So you're absolutely right, in my opinion.
Dr. Taylor, did I have that right? I don't remember. I like that point, but I don't remember it being discussed in the committee.
I don't recall. I've slept since then. And thank God that somebody doesn't follow me around with a tape recorder. Poorly ended for everybody.
The only thing that I mentioned in the Rules Committee was the concern that there are people out there with a doctorate that is not in the appropriate major, and they are referring themselves as Dr. such and such, for counseling, but it's not, and that's a concern. But it's a very good point to be able to have that on there, and for the public to know that the board has signed off on that. We've done the research and we've looked at it, and it's in fact legit. That's the PhD, and it's in this field, and so it's appropriate. So, but that was the only thing that I had mentioned, was the concern of people actually referring themselves to as I'm Dr. such and such, but it's not in that field.
Brenda, do a quick introduction.
Hi, I'm Brenda Compagnone, professional member, and I apologize for being late, but it's my tooth. It's all good now, so I'm here. Happy Friday.
Well, I hope that it gets better.
It's perfect
I'm
now.
glad you were able to join us.
Thank you.
Okay. So But Vanessa, I did want to hear from you, as the other public member. Do you share my concerns as the public member on how we could be confused over, this title of seeing a therapist? Well, you're a doctor, but, a doctorate in theology, is that appropriate for counseling or not? That's my concern, but, since this, I think one of the major discussion points in this is how does it appear to the general public? I want to know another public member's perspective on this. What do you think? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry. Off mute.
There we go. Sorry. I don't know. That's a very relevant question. I'm actually currently a Christian counselor, and I've been credentialed through a Christian institution, but I wanted to become a licensed therapist and I wanted to practice. So going through the rigor of understanding the curriculum, and I checked BHEC, and I've spoken to someone who actually understands the process. They said, no, you cannot call your practice a counselor. Even though your background, your religious background has said you're certified in Christian counseling, it doesn't give you the right to call yourself a counselor. So I'm currently back in school. I'm getting my licensure for an LMFT because I don't want to misrepresent myself to the public. And people have called me a counselor, but theoretically, I'm not a counselor in a public setting. It would be okay if I worked for a church and called myself that because it resides within that religious community. But in the public sector at large, it's a misnomer. It's out of alignment with the laws and regulations. So I've been affected by it personally. I'm back in school and I'm going to get my licensure for that reason. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like it's relevant for me as a public member. And it's because I've been sitting on this board that I've learned a lot about being a religious leader versus being a leader in the public setting under the laws and regulations. And those are two different things. And I've just had to determine, how do I want to represent myself and what kind of practice do I want? And I want to practice where I am not coercing people into understanding my religious views because that's who have credentialed me. I want to be able to serve people on whatever diverse basis that I need to, because that's where the majority really resides now in our society there. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Congratulations on the academic journey that you've begun. That's fantastic news. You'll be a welcome addition to our Texas mental health professionals. So kind of keep us posted on how you're doing, because, well, someday here you'll be more professional member than public member.
I aspire to that. Thank you.
So out of the Rules Committee meeting, everybody just kind of agrees that this would be a great thing to do, but it is a devil is in the details kind of argument, because I do remember Daryl saying specifically, if this could be done automatically, it's a no-brainer, and it would have already been done by now. So I think for today's purposes, we can say that we do like this idea and we want to continue pursuing it, but we can all agree that we need to hear back from staff on what it entails on their end to make it a reality. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. Dr. Bradley?
I want to point out another thing, and I think I'm correct on this. If you check the rosters in the past, the LPC roster used to include the PhD after their name. But if you look today, the rosters do not have that included.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look into that.
You know, so that prison, and I'm talking about supervisors especially.
Okay.
I don't know how these things got dropped, but I think some important things no longer exist. And again, I'm back to the thing, I don't think staff time should trump what's important for clients in the profession. And here I'm referring to getting that LPC. I mean, people spend a lot of money. And I would never say a master's counselor is not as good a counselor as a PhD counselor. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm saying after you get that degree, other professions, you wouldn't go to an MD for medical help if he or she didn't have the title of which you're aware. And I think there's a lot of training and time and money that's gone into this, and that we should do the right thing to help those people that we have licensed to have that credential PhD notified, available there on their license. It's important. You know, we talk about the economy, we talk about money. This is money too for those individuals. And I'm not speaking for myself. I was licensed so many years ago that my PhD is listed. I'm talking about the new people who are coming into the field. They deserve this. And so I'm a little perturbed about staff time here on this. I don't think that's the issue.
Patrick, did you have a response on that?
Just briefly, I don't know that I can answer all of Dr. Bradley's questions because I don't know what all was done previously at Department of State Health Services or at HHSC when they were processing applications. My understanding is when they look at an application, they process it and see if it meets the criteria, and then they issue the license, but they don't currently on the actual license that they issue put any sort of degree on it. It's just that it's, you know, this applicant is now become a licensee and they put their name on it. But I don't believe, and Christina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe they do put any sort of degree on that license that's issued. So part of that is I don't know if the database is different. And so that's one of the problems might be is a database issue, and that's what staff would need to look at to see if it's how to manage that and what that would require if we could even do that. But the other part of it too is that if someone was initially licensed where they had their master's, the license was issued, the application was reviewed based on that academic requirement. And so typically we will review it on whatever academics and degree that they have. And when they get another degree, part of the problem would be staff looking at it and say, okay, now do we have to re-review this person and relicense them based on a new degree? So there's several different, I think, issues that need to be looked at and addressed if we're going to move forward with it. But a bigger problem is the database and what's being used right now. And those are questions I can't necessarily answer because it's not something that we're currently doing. We're not currently, as far as I know, putting the degree, regardless of what degree they have when they initially apply on the license. So I don't know if that helps answer part of your question, but or it's part of your concern, but I think that's why we have to go back and find more information on that.
Yes, Dr. Bradley?
Let's just go back to let me pick on you, Patrick. When you first got your first degree, it was a bachelor's degree. You would want your new credentials as JD, I would think, on any new license. And I think that's what the people obtaining the PhD, they have a master's degree, but they have a more advanced training. And I think that we are representing, trying to represent counselors who are licensed in the sense of showing their credentials. And I just think that this is an important thing that we do. And I think other professions do that.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily arguing against it. And I'm not saying that currently right now, if somebody is licensed with us and they do have a doctoral degree, that they can't advertise that they are a doctor, because the rules wouldn't prohibit them from necessarily doing that. The main thing is putting it on their actual license, their degree on their actual license. And that's the issue that I don't know we can do, but I would actually say on my law license, I don't actually think it has my degree on there. I think it just has my name. It doesn't actually list the degree that I earned.
Well, let me ask you this, it makes a difference in income.
Right. No, I understand that that's potentially an issue with it. I just don't know, again, going back to the database, how to add that, if that's even a possibility. And so I think that's something that Daryl was going to go back and try to look to see how could that be accomplished? Because some things, whenever you want to add things to the database, are easily done. And some things will cost thousands of dollars for programming time in order to add it. So, or it will require additional staff review time each application when they do it. So I don't know all the particular options for it. It's just, how do you accomplish that? And what are the tasks? What are the requirements? Is it programming? Is it staff time? Or, because I don't know how, when you got yours added or other people got theirs added at HHSC or Department of State Health Services, what they did. I don't know, honestly don't know how they did that.
I don't know how they did either. But I think Dr. Taylor would have more information on this than I. But my best guess is with insurance panels, this could be a difference of around at least 30,000 more each year, depending on the number of clients they have. Now, I don't have any direct data. I'm not doing this with an insurance board, but I do think that people who have gone for this additional training, and if it makes a difference in their income, that we must be cognizant of what we can do to help them. And I'll stop there, except to say I strongly support the argument that some way we find a way to get this on.
And Patrick, I just wanted to add that making that transition from that HHSC and the BHEC and everything, I did at one point when we were getting the cards in the mail, I did have the licensed professional counselor supervisor on there. So I know that it was done at some point. I just don't know when it was dropped or what happened, or if it's just a software thing, or I don't know, but I know that we would get cards issued and it would have everything on there. So I don't know what happened, but I know that it was on there before. So somewhere it just dropped.
Yeah, the supervisor status can still be added in the database. It's the putting the degree after everyone's title. I don't know enough about how that's done to talk about it intelligently. So yeah, the supervisor status and things like that can be added or dropped. That's capable in the database right now.
Yes, Dr. Bradley?
I'm going to say one thing, and then I promise to shut up. If people want this on their license, perhaps a compromise here is to charge a fee for it. I bet you that people would be willing to pay that fee. And I hate to say to charge people more, but I think if it came down to individuals receiving that PhD on their license or not having it, I think they would pay some sort of a fee. That's a guess. I have no data to support this.
Dr. Bradley, they would still be required to pay the fee to get a new license issued because they still have to get the new
Right.
license issued. So
But I bet what I was trying to say, this is probably important enough to people. Mine has that, but
yeah,
I think there are other people that if someone said, well, we can't do it because it's takes too much time, too much money, that I think they would come back and say, it's important enough to me to pay a nominal fee to get it on. But yes, they would have to get the new license.
they are required to pay that fee, and they were required to pay it at HHSC, and they would be required to pay it here as well, because they do have to pay, just as if they lost their paper license and wanted to get a reissue, they still have to pay for it. So that fee's already in there, and they would need to do that. I think Patrick's concern is more about time than it is about money. And the fear that this might require a reduction in complaints or, you know, an increase in wait times for associates or other, you know, licensees and other rules that Patrick is concerned about. That's where I think he's coming from on.
Jenny, you did have your hand up. Did you want to add anything?
I was just gonna say that your report is that as a rules committee, we're looking at how to get this done and so it's just, you were informing everybody, we're looking at this. Because that was something that people brought to us, and so we're looking into it.
We are looking into it. The committee kind of felt as though we wanted to get the thoughts of the greater board to make sure the committee is for this. And we wanted to get verification that the board as a whole was very for it. And then, yeah, we are gonna wait to kind of receive some feedback from staff. I know staff's concern is that they do recognize that it's important, and believe me, they recognize that we do want this. But there is the constant balancing that the staff has to do versus wants and needs of the board versus core mission of their responsibilities. And so there is a bit of balancing. The fact that we are very in favor of this, I think helps with their balance assessment on it. But once we do receive a determination, really from Daryl or Tim or whoever it's going to come from on what it would entail, that'll give us an idea of which path we're going to take towards continuing to see if we can do this versus is it absolutely dead in the water? And I don't think anybody views it as absolutely dead in the water, but if we can get a staff determination that this is very important to the board, it's very important to Texas LPCs, that goes a long way with them factoring in their overall tasks. And I was gonna give them a little leeway because I know they've had a lot of responsibilities to responding to the legislature when they've had questions regarding the compact. They know this is on the radar, but maybe not quite locking them into a firm deadline at this point because of just the additional responsibilities that they're juggling right now with being responsive on the legislative inquiries. So Janie, I love your let's find the win-win-win. That's fantastic. The goal here is let's find the win-win-win for this one.
Yeah.
Dr. Bradley made an interesting point. What if there was an additional fee for this or a separate fee? And Dr. Taylor responded to that. But maybe that's something that we bring up. So how much is the fee for a new license?
I believe it's 10, but I'd have to double check.
So it's $10 for a new license, but what if it was $30 for a new license that included your PhD? I don't know. Just again, looking for the win-win-win, because if I'm understanding the board correctly, we are very in favor of this. And the report back through Patrick and through Christina is the board discussed it and they're very in favor of it. Anything to
I
add?
can't take credit for the win-win-win. That's all Stephen Covey, so.
Well, I like it and I remembered it. Anything to add? And y'all, if there's not, do you mind if we take about a 5-minute break and then we kind of come back here? Is everybody good with that? Let's take about 5 minutes and then come right back and I'll see you in a second. Okay, we are back in session at 10:36 a.m. Moving on, item 12 is my board chair report. First thing I wanted to mention is that we hosted our most recent Insights Over the Lunch Hour continuing education on April 20th. I want to specifically say thanks to Ms. Janie Stubblefield and Dr. Leah Amuna for leading the discussion. They did the development, they led the presentation. By my count, we topped out at 300 participants on the CE, and that's fantastic. I'd love to keep doing these things, ideally 3 or 4 of them a year. If you have a topic that you have in mind, please reach out to Christina with your topic ideas. Basically, these things happen because somebody picks up the ball and is willing to run with it. On this last one, it was Danny who picked up the ball and said, we're going to make this happen, and she did. So that's really what it takes to get this done. I feel as though, because fingers crossed, the compact passes in the legislature, and then everybody's going to have a ton of questions about how it impacts them. So that might be the subject for the next time we do this, but it's something to keep in mind. If there's something that you feel strongly about and you want to lead a presentation, let us know. Like I said, we'd like to do 3 or 4 of these a year. What I try to stress is, since we're board members, really provide value from a board member's perspective in whatever you want to teach. And that's usually talking about a new rule, a rule change, an important rule, things that we're in charge of. That really provides the most value to anybody attending this. Okay, so keep that in mind. What is the board member expertise that I can bring to this discussion? Okay. Next, I did want to mention that BHEC met on January 31st. We're going to discuss this coming up, but BHEC voted to go to triannual meetings. They're no longer going to meet 4 times a year. They're going to meet 3 times a year. This does impact us in a few different ways. We're going to discuss it further on in our meeting today. It's agenda item number 16, but that was a recent change out of BHEC. BHEC, we've kind of touched on this, but we did discuss the Uvalde report. There was specific discussion regarding how BHEC can streamline licensure. One thing that was kind of mentioned that we didn't discuss earlier, there's a possibility of a town hall discussion with all the mental health boards, with our stakeholder organizations, BHEC staff. This is an idea that is at the BHEC level, and if so, it'll be a kind of a all hands meeting. BHEC staff, all the mental health boards, and our stakeholder organizations. And I don't think this has ever been attempted. And so this is new territory to have this sort of high level town hall meeting. That is kind of out of our authority. We said that, of course, LPCs would be part of this if we do have it. And so I'll kind of keep you posted on whether we are gonna, if BHEC chooses to move forward in that manner. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'd love getting everybody involved. Let's discuss this. We're at the point now where we're nearly at the 1 year point from that horrible occurrence. And I think it's about time that we have kind of an all hands on deck sort of discussion on this. The report is out. It's time to discuss what the report says and say, hey, from the subject matter experts on the mental health side, this is our perspective. This is what we think can be done to affect change. I'll keep you posted on that. I know you guys, some of you would want to actually be part of it as on the panel discussion, but I think all of y'all would at least kind of pay attention to the discussion, and I'll keep you updated on that. Just kind of a side, this is sort of a minor issue, but there was a discussion, psychology brought up. They kind of got thrown a curveball recently. They are now required to pass both parts 1 and 2 of their EPPP exam. This got BHEC's attention on a higher level. And the joke is when in doubt, form a committee, form a subcommittee. So that's what we did here. There's a subcommittee that got put in place sort of for, I guess, response, for discussion, for addressing when you have an issue like this. Psychology, the EPPP had parts 1 and 2, only part 1 used to be required. Now they just nationally, they voted to require part 2. And so our response on this was, well, let's have a committee to kind of address this at the BHEC level. I volunteered to represent LPCs on this subcommittee in sort of a monitoring the big picture type of role. Because at this point, we are balancing can we increase access to mental health without sacrificing standards? How can the process be streamlined? And so since the Uvalde report was directed at a BHEC level, we kind of viewed this as a BHEC level type of subcommittee that can kind of address those concerns, the balancing of standards with streamlining access to mental health professionals. So that is the subcommittee that was formed on that. They haven't done anything yet. And if something kind of interesting and definitely anything that comes out of that subcommittee that really has an LPC impact, I will report back to you on that. So Patrick, you're kind of the expert on the EPPP exam. Is there anything that in particular that you needed to add to that?
No, not really, just that it's not implemented and it won't be until 2026, I think. So it's something that we're looking at to see how those things are unfolding and developing and what will happen down the road.
Okay. And one last thing, I'm going to wrap up the board chair report. I want to say thank you to everybody that is part of getting the compact bill advanced in the legislature. First of all, our board members, I'll start with Dr. Amuna, who has a personal connection with the bill's sponsor. And I know she reached out to the sponsor, thank him for filing the bill and let him know that she's available if the guy has questions regarding the bill. So Dr. Amuna, thank you for doing that. And also Dr. Bradley, your reports from developments on the ACA audit committee, that is helpful as well. So thank you for representing our interests with ACA and also kind of keeping everybody else in the loop on this. It's kind of a strange position because we are kind of on the other side of the fence and we're just kind of looking over the fence and seeing what the cool kids are up to. And so we're trying to thank you for being the one who's reporting back and letting us know that, hey, something that we would like to have happen is in process and this is what they're doing. So we're monitoring it. That's about the best that we can do right now. But I appreciate you kind of keeping me informed, keeping the other board members informed like you did this morning. TCA, specifically Jan, who is doing a good job of communicating with me on the efforts TCA is taking to meet with our representatives, meet with our senators. TCA, it's a priority for them, and I know they're doing all that they can. Dr. Kathy Ibanez Llorente, on behalf of TCA, was the one who testified in front of the House committee in support of the compact bill. If you recall, she is one of our designated resource witnesses. We have kind of, we consider her to be a subject matter expert on the compact bill. TCA obviously agrees because they requested that she go and testify before the House committee. Those are on Zoom, and I know Christina and I were watching that committee meeting all day, and she finally got to testify. It was sometime after lunch, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. But she did a fantastic job. So Dr. Ibanez Llorente, if you happen to be watching this meeting, thank you for your efforts. And finally, I'll wrap it up with thank you to our BHEC staff, because they have shown some flexibility and some willingness to make the changes, to take the steps, to I guess to absorb the responsibilities that would be necessary for Texas to join the compact. And so far they've said, okay, curveball here, curveball there, but we can handle it. And they have continued to say, green light. Well, it still works for us. They handled the fiscal note that the committee required. They're monitoring implementation efforts and how that would affect us. And I'm talking with Daryl, talking with Patrick occasionally, and they're letting me know, well, this issue popped up, but we can handle it. It's still full speed ahead on our end. So thank you to the staff that's really shown some flexibility and some willingness to make this happen. That wraps up my board chair report. Does anybody have any questions on any of that? Okay, I'm gonna hand it to Christina for the board administrator report.
All right. So currently staff are continuing, as I usually report, to experience high volume of phone calls and emails. There is, as I say before, there is a lot of information online. We continue to add new information under the Q&A section or the FAQ section, the how-to user guides. Everything is there. There's screenshots. So please try and find the information on our website before sending an email or contacting staff. Because there's a lot of really good information on there. Also, please try not to contact staff until at least 6 weeks after your payment has been processed. Typically what will happen is if it has been that long, you probably received an email from staff saying, hey, we got your application, but you're missing this or that. So they'll have you respond to that deficiency and provide that missing document. We just remember the email that you may get from staff will come from a do not reply email address. So just keep that in mind. Be sure to check your spam and your junk folder. What it sounds like is there's some emails that are going out and it's going to the spam or junk, and the applicant isn't seeing it. So spread the word, double check your spam and junk folders and make sure you haven't received something from the board. A lot of times the emails may come directly from staff too. So just keep that in mind. Currently, we still have 5 staff who are working for the LPC licensing division. So that's really great. And the processing times are awesome, which can also be found online. Let's see. Okay. One big thing that I wanted to go over, because at the last Lunch and Learn, we had a lot of questions on the new rules related to the CEs. So I wanted to just go ahead and clarify. Current rules that are in effect right now are under 681.140 under requirements for continuing education. Janie, did you have a question?
Christina, can you pull those rules up? You
Oh.
had them on screen at one time.
Sure. Alrighty. Can you guys see the screen? Okay. So under the 681.140, and this is under the new set of rules. So if you're one of those people that print out your rules and you just keep a copy at your desk or whatnot, be sure you're going back to the website, make sure you're getting the most up-to-date rules in your packet. So again, rule number 681.140, requirements for continuing education. The rules under A1 here, we still only require 24 hours of CEs per renewal period. Okay, so there's still only 24. Of the 24, there have to be 6 in ethics and 3 in cultural diversity or competency. And those are 2 different requirements. So 6 in ethics and 3 in cultural diversity. I know there was some confusion about, are those all together? It was just, quite confusing. So 6 in ethics specifically, then 3 in cultural diversity, and that's of the 24 required hours. Okay. So those are in effect right now. So if your renewal if you had to submit for renewal on or after March 7th of 2023, when these rules went into effect, you need to meet this requirement under A1. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Again, keep in mind, so the JP exam is now required. That is 1 hour of ethics as well. There's 1 hour requirement for the human trafficking awareness course. And then any licensees that are supervisors, and let me find this, I think it's under here. Yes, a licensee with supervisor status must complete 6 hours of CE in supervision. So that's not in addition to the 24, like an additional of the 24, additional 6 of the 24, that's included in the 24. So 6 in ethics, 1 hour is in, can be counted for the JP, 3 in the cultural diversity, 1 in the human trafficking and awareness. And then if you're an LPC supervisor, you have to have the 6 hours in supervision. Those are all already in effect and will need to be completed if you are renewing on or after March 7th of 2023. Now we're going to go to under 681.140 under F as in Frank. And everything that is outlined under F are the requirements that will be in effect January 1 of 2024. So if you renew on or after January 1 of 2024, your continuing education requirements need to meet this section. This section is the 50% of your CEs must be completed through one of these forms, one of these providers. So it's the hospitals, the schools, the associations. So there's many here listed for your reference on getting those continuing education hours. And again, that will, anyone who has to renew on or after January 1 of 2024, these are the requirements that you must make sure you have for the continuing education. The continuing education certificates do not need to be submitted unless you are selected for audit. Okay, so, and let me get here real quick. For when you're selected for audit, you will receive a letter in the mail. And let me show you what it looks like. So under our FAQs, one of the questions here is related to how do you know if you're selected for audit? The blue postcard is your regular renewal. That means that you're not under audit. If you are going to be under audit for continuing education, you'll get a letter in the mail. That's when you need to go in when you do your online renewal, upload your continuing education certificates, and that is part of your renewal. Otherwise, if you just get a blue card, we do not need their certificates, but you need to keep them for your records. I hope that clarified all of that information. And let me see what else I had. Oh, one more place I wanted to show everyone on. Oh, well, I kind of showed it earlier, but I'll show it one more time. But under the main VHEC website, we have the new proposed rule changes and rulemaking process. Everything is here on the process, the steps to it, and then also how to provide public comment. So this should be a really helpful tool for those who, it can be very confusing on how to submit it. And like Ms. Skiff had mentioned earlier, if you are going to submit public comment on more than one, you need to do them individually. That way we can ensure that the public comment you're submitting goes to the right rule. What else? I think that's it. So otherwise, thank you, board members, for everything. And I try to get this information out so that, help everyone here. But if there's any other, questions, hopefully the FAQ and the conferences is where we kind of learn where the issues might come up. And so we appreciate your patience with it. Yes.
Christina, we were also going to talk about the survey and how people could participate in the survey.
Okay. Let me go back to share screen. Okay. So main BHEC website, on the right-hand side, there's the workforce survey and data. So this one here is where we would like for, you all to submit your feedback on the council workforce study. And this is really helpful information. So we can see the different type of licensees, the number of licensees who are completing it, and the different geographical areas, and who the type of what else was on it? Janie, I don't remember what that.
Sure. So this is a workforce study that is for all of our Texas mental health professionals, and it's gathering data on the client demographics of who you're serving, and any demographics on how you obtain your licensure and some of those types of things. It's just really valuable information as we're talking about the diversity of our culture and the diversity of our workforce, but also for us to be able to look at, maybe there's still large, and we know there's large pockets of our community that are still well underserved, and to be able to identify that, to see what gaps still need to be filled in. So if you've not participated in the study as yet, please go on and do that. It's completely voluntary, and we're just collecting the data to be able to, see where we are in our state, because we want to improve. We don't want to be number 50 any longer.
Yeah, it's very good information. It's probably it's something that we'll be able to get out for you all to see as well once the survey ends. It does close on December 31st. So there's still a little bit of time, but spread the word on it. The more people that we can have to complete the survey, the better information we can get, the better data.
It helps us with
And
this.
Christina, actually, it's available. So if you go down, the current data
okay.
is available.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it's all live. People can look at it and see what that information is.
Thank you, Janie. That's awesome. All right, so that's some really great information that is on the website. I'm still learning, so thank you, Janie, for having that background information. So yes, go ahead and everyone spread the word on that. Let's try and get as many people as we can. As you see, the LPC are the leading board who is partaking in this survey. So let's keep pushing for that. I'm done there.
Any questions for Christina? Okay, let's move on to public comment.
I will say that there was no written public comment. So let's see who we have today on Zoom comments. Okay, first person we have is Faith Ray.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I was just wanting clarification on the 24-hour CE. I'm a supervisor, so it's not 6 additional. 6 is included in the 24?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Okay, hold on just a sec. Gotta find my list now. Okay. Okay, next is Rhonda Kimball.
Good morning. I just want to speak to the issue that was discussed about the PhD distinction. So just because my license was issued within 24 hours, bravo staff, my distinction master's is indicated after my name because that is what is required. The associate distinction and supervisor distinction is also indicated on a license because that is what is required. A PhD is not required. Any doctoral program the person completes is a doctor. So why make the only distinction if you're a PhD? Again, it's not required. It's an unfair advantage, as you heard in the discussion with Dr. Bradley. It's an unfair monetary advantage. It lets insurance companies dictate who gets paid what. And socioeconomically, many people can't afford to go to a doctorate program. I, for one, have been accepted to one. I haven't decided if I'm going because I like to work with people. So my preferences are to serve the community versus get more academically equipped, which doesn't necessarily mean you're better at your job. But when you put the doctor in front, it gives a facade that maybe you know more, maybe you're better at it. I don't know that that's true. Regardless, it is not required, so it should not be indicated. However, in your advertisement, you can indicate, I'm a doctor of education, I have a master's in this, and that you can write whatever you want on your advertisement as long as it's true. I find that to be sufficient, fair, and leveling the playing field for the LPCs. And I think that needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Kimball.
Okay, next person is Dr. Leggett.
Hi, good afternoon or morning still. Dr. Elsa Soto-Leggett, TCA president. I just wanted to add a little historical perspective. Oh, but first let me say thank you for all your hard work and really working hard on that compact bill. Thank you for everybody who's pitching in. But I wanted to add a historical component to the PhD. I have, not that I'm a hoarder, but I do have my old paper license. And in 2008, it has Elsa Soto-Leggett PhD. And then in 2009, it no longer has that. So and at that time, we had to, we only could list it if our doctorates was in the area of a specialty of counseling. And so I just wanted to add that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Diane Smedley.
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So good morning, board members and staff. My name is Diane Smedley, and I am a licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and counselor educator. Additionally, I do serve as the liaison to the LPC board for the Texas Association for Counselor Education and Supervision. Thank you today for the opportunity to make public comment. So first off, I want to start off by saying thank you to the board for their attendance to the TASIS annual midwinter conference back in March. We deeply enjoyed the information provided by the board members and staff, specifically Dr. Bradley, Dr. Taylor, and Ms. DeLuna. Thank you for spending your time answering questions from our members. And Ms. DeLuna, thank you for your extended availability to us. Secondly, as you all were talking about supervisors and how many there were, I wanted to just add something to that conversation to consider. Although the number of credentialed LPC supervisors sounds large, not every credentialed supervisor provides supervision to LPC associates. Many gain the credentialing solely as a work requirement, or they may only make themselves available to supervise LPCs at their workplace. So that makes them unavailable to supervise the wider pool of LPC associates. So I just wonder if the board is aware of how many of the total LPC supervisors, that number you gave us earlier, are actually actively offering supervision. That data of active supervisors may provide a more accurate understanding regarding the LPC associate access to supervision. Finally, TASIS does support finding a pathway to adding the PhD into licenses. Appropriate reimbursement for LPCs and accurate representation of education is best for the public. So just let me know if TASIS can help in any way in gathering data, information, or membership input. Otherwise, I appreciate the board's time today, consideration of public comments, and the service you provide to the Texas citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I do agree that it would be helpful to have more specific data on who is practicing and who isn't. I just don't know that the state really has a way to gather that. So with that being said, we would welcome any data submitted as public comment. I would love any form of data that we can find to support how many, actual supervisors we have that are supervising. And also, we have 30,000 licensees, but how many of them are actually doing therapy? So I think those are all great questions. Resources, I don't think we have to go and get that information, but I definitely think it is important.
Next person we have is Dr. Hollingsworth.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I'm on the highway, so on the way to the TOMCA conference, so I will get started. First of all, good morning, board members and staff. My name is Dr. Lori Hollingsworth, and I serve as the president-elect to the Texas Mental Health Counseling Association Board. And I'm grateful today for the opportunity to provide public comment on behalf of TOMCA. We acknowledge your efforts through the board and through the Rules Committee of considering adding the PhD to the Texas license, the LPC license. Some insurance boards will pay more. Most of them will not, but it does open us up into other markets to serve populations that maybe aren't being served by the master's level. It's a consideration that could be taken into account. And the TOMCA board does recognize the board's continued effort to improve the experience of all the stakeholders, and we appreciate your boards, each of your members volunteering their time to public in considering public comment and to your service to the citizens of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have is Angela Bowles.
Good morning, board. My name is Angela Bowles. I am a licensed professional counselor supervisor and the Texas Counseling Association liaison to the board. I would like to echo Chair Hallbauer and express appreciation for the fantastic Lunch and Learn presentation led by Dr. Amuna and Jamie Stubblefield. Thank you, Chair Hallbauer and Christina DeLuna for the Q&A and making the slides presentations available on the website. As we break for summer, I would like to express gratitude to the board and staff for the generous amount of time, intellect, and energy they have invested in their roles. The speed of processing upgrades and applications is absolutely amazing. When you look at these reports, you can see the numbers tell a very impressive story of the incredible amount of work being done to increase efficiency and bring all boards into alignment. We appreciate all of the boards behind the scenes effort. This work can't always be captured in the reports, and we recognize that this has been no small or simple task for anyone. Thank you so much. Recently, I had the opportunity to attend the April meeting of the LMFT board in person, and it was so nice seeing the meeting conducted in person and be able to interact with the board members during the breaks. I know this is no small task and the virtual meetings seem to be going very well, but it would be great if there was an opportunity to meet in person at least maybe a couple of times a year. Thank you for your dedicated volunteer service to our profession and the citizens of the great state of Texas.
Thank you, Angela Wolf. Okay, next we have Dr. Robert Franklin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Franklin. I'm an LPC supervisor here in Texas as well. I only had two comments. I want to reiterate some of the other support about adding the PhD. It's more about accuracy and reflection and avoiding deception to our public, and that they understand the training that your provider has. So I do definitely advocate for that component. The second thing is I was lucky to attend the American Counseling Association's presentation on the compact agreement. So if anybody would like to get more information, they can go to counselingcompact.org, and they have a great set of literature on how that's supposed to be rolling out. as well as if you click on the state of Texas on the map, it'll actually lead you to the legislation that is being proposed both in the House and in the Senate for our public members out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Franklin. And we have Olivia Weddle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Olivia Waddell, and I am the current president of Texas Mental Health Counselors Association. And as Lori mentioned, I'm also driving to our conference right now in Fredericksburg. I did pull off just to make some public comment. We appreciate the work that the board continues to do to support the profession as well as professional counselors here in Texas. This conference that we're having tomorrow did come together fairly quickly. So we are planning to set the date for 2024, hopefully within the next month. And we would love to have members of the board present. I really like the idea that was mentioned earlier about Christina having access to some educational materials. If BHEC can make that happen, because we do get questions from a lot of professional counselors through our social media, and through our regional events and through our webinars. We can also share about the survey in our TOMCA newsletter, which we publish quarterly. We would be glad to do that and help spread the word so that we can find that information. And then the only other thing I wanted to add is TOMCA, as a division of TCA, we have a very good working relationship with the leadership of the American Mental Health Counselors Association. In fact, we have some members who are presenting there at that conference at the end of June. And AMCA is also one of the major players in just furthering, hopefully, the Interstate Compact licensure, or not licensure, but the Interstate Counseling Compact. And they have been very supportive with sharing resources with us and things like that. So I just wanted to mention that we do have a productive and positive working relationship with the AMCA leadership. And we also had representation at ACA. Thank you all very much for the work that you're doing, and we will keep you posted on the TOMCA conference date for 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the last public comment we have is Mario de la Garza.
Good morning, board members. My name is Dr. Mario de la Garza, and I currently serve as the president-elect of the Texas Association for Counselor Education and Supervision. Thank you so much for your work this morning and throughout the year. We really do appreciate it. I wanted to just speak to thanking you as well, like other people have, in hearing the comments about the counseling compact and the board support for that. Ms. Stubblefield, I called my legislator just yesterday to voice my opinion and my hope of support for that from him. I also wanted to just bring up that I really do appreciate the board's discussion and keeping in mind of that and what BHEC has done in terms of the report out of Uvalde. Having mental health access and greater mental health access and streamlining this is so important for our state. And so I appreciate that, just kind of keeping that in mind always, like you seem to be doing, in terms of just thinking about what it is that Texans need. And then also, I wanted to just thank BHEC and thank the board and everyone who's participated or helped in making the process of providing public comment just easier. That certainly is nice and something that I look forward to. Anything that's easier for me is always welcome. And finally, I just want to reiterate what Diane Smedley, our liaison, said earlier. We thank you so much for those board members, Dr. Bradley and Dr. Taylor, and then staff member Ms. DeLuna, who came to our TASES conference in the spring. And I especially just want to give a shout out to Christina for staying those both days days or for coming both days and answering questions. And what Chair Halbauer said, if you're going to give more money to Christina or give her presents or give her whatever it is that she needs, I fully support that. So thank you so much for your work, for your ongoing time that you give for the members or for the public, and for what you do for counseling in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. All right, I just wanted to remind everyone that public comment, you can now submit public comment on our agenda, and the third paragraph, there's a new way to submit written public comment now. It's something that the staff will, that I'll get before the meeting that'll go to the board members. So you can always take advantage of that. And then just a reminder that you get, one chance at it, you get 3 minutes. And from there, you can submit other public comment if you wanted to, but we have a 3-minute limit. So just wanted to remind that for future meetings. And that looks like the end of our public comment session.
Thank you, everybody. Let's go on to item 15. Items for consideration for future meetings. Usually we do this during the course of the board meeting. I've made notes of what we need to add for the future, and I've also made notes on where we have follow-up items. But this is your opportunity to suggest anything that we haven't discussed already. So does anybody have anything that they want us to tackle in future committee or board meetings? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. As I alluded to in the BHEC update, BHEC decided to go to triennial meetings. That's a fancy word for they're going to meet 3 times a year instead of 4 times a year. The discussion on this was centered around the fact that staff is reporting that efficiency is at a level to where going from 4 meetings a year to 3 meetings would not be any sort of material decline in the level of responsiveness of the BHEC level boards. So what each of the member boards were then tasked with, it was deciding whether they wanted to follow suit and also go to 3 meetings per year instead of 4, or whether they wanted to keep at the current quarterly 4 meetings per year. There's pros and cons on this. Obviously, a pro to go into 3 meetings is that it's just one less day for you guys for your role. I think everybody has the initial concerns, is that are we creating some detrimental lag time in our responsiveness to our issues? Roughly anything that is on a clock for a board related issue, it kind of extends any item of consideration by a month. That's how you got to look at it. I think my initial assessment was, well, are people who are in limbo waiting to have a disciplinary hearing heard, or people who want to have to make an appeal to the board. Really, since we changed how the disciplinary hearings are accomplished, those are addressed quickly. So I do like the fact that we're not leaving people in limbo for an additional month, because their matter can be heard with these as needed disciplinary hearings that we really get to rather quickly. That's not affected here. So my big concern is dropping down to 3 meetings per year. Where are we really giving up our level of responsiveness to the needs of the profession? And that's part of the discussion today, is do you feel as though we can still be as responsive? Can we still function as efficiently with 3 meetings per year than that we do with 4 meetings per year? That's my big concern. The reason we're able to do this is because the dust really has settled with the BHEC implementation. Things are moving very efficiently. That's what we hear from staff. That's what we hear at the BHEC level. That's what we hear from Christina when she's doing her reports, is that there was a BHEC and a COVID and a building move level of chaos for 2-3 years, but those things have settled down. And really at the BHEC level, they've settled down to the point where we can go to 3 meetings as opposed to 4. And so BHEC did vote to go to 3 meetings. Now, if we were to do the same, there is some symmetry that is ideal, because we would then be meeting, BHEC meets, and then we meet a few weeks later. And so everything still kind of lines up with the old tennis match between sending it to BHEC, sending it back down, sending it back up for further consideration, that kind of thing. There is, we would maintain that symmetry if we follow their new triennial schedule. And there is a big safety net here in that, let's say we go to 3 meetings, but then something occurs where we need a special meeting. There is a big issue that it's really important that we address it as quickly as possible. We can always add a meeting. So there is that safety net in place. So Patrick, I'd hand it to Daryl, but you're the substitute teacher today. Care to add any sort of, yes, this is working on the BHEC end, and yes, it would also work on the LPC end if you would decide to do it?
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. I don't think that it would slow down efficiency. If you look at a lot of the reports and whether it's licensing or whether it's enforcement data, all of it is trending to shorter time periods. A lot of them are like the cases are getting wrapped up. There's now 123 total based on the last status report LPC cases. And that's probably a lower number currently. That's just as of February 28th. Because again, if you look at the data, it says there's 2 cases in 2019. I can tell you when the next report comes up, that number will be lower because I know one of those 2019 cases is resolved. So that just goes to my point, is that the process that's been put in place has really, I think, been very efficient. And so I don't necessarily see that going to a three meeting a year instead of a 4 meeting a year I don't anticipate it'll cause any slowdown or backlog. And so I think it should not, I don't anticipate it'll have any negative effect.
Okay. Dr. Taylor, you were part of that BHEC discussion. Anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good move for us. I think it's the time to do it right now. One thing to keep into consideration is it's not just one less meeting. It is tons of hours that staff put into this. The number of staffers that have to be present here. Like Patrick's not doing other work that he needs to be doing right now. So other work that we're making. And I know Christina's not able to do certain things that she would like to be doing right now. And so it's not just, a group of us, here for 4 hours or so. It's a large amount of staff time, and it's also a large amount of staff time for prep as well. They have to prepare for these meetings. And then there's also the post meeting. We have to get these videos on YouTube. There's a lot of other things that have to be done after the meetings as well. That just, require a lot of effort. I look at it as we're not getting rid of a meeting. Instead of meeting once every 3 months, we're just meeting once every 4 months, So it's not really this like big
deletion of a whole part of the calendar. We're just stretching things out a little bit more. This also puts us in sync with BHEC, like you've already said. So there's a lot of stuff that if we do here, it still has to go to the next BHEC meeting. So, you know, having 4 meetings a year while BHEC only has 3 means that at one meeting, we'll have another LPC morning meeting before the next BHEC meeting. So we won't have anything accomplished by then if it has to go up to BHEC for approval. So that creates a logistical issue, I think, for staff and for us. So all around, I think it's just good. And of course, we always have that safety net in our back office, in our back pocket. We can call a meeting at any time we want. You know, we can call an emergency meeting. We can call, you know, public meetings. We have great efficiency with applications and complaints. And so I really just see a whole lot of upside to this.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thoughts, questions? I think between the 3 of us, we kind of laid out the reasoning behind this. You know what? Be honest with me. If we were meeting in person, would that factor in? Because you know, if the infrastructure here is in place, it'd be nice to at least once a year for all of us to get together in person. I mean, we don't have to do it every time, but man, it's so great to see y'all live people, and you know, Dr. Muna can make comments about how you're taller or shorter than she thought you were. Okay, but anyway, does that factor in? Because I'm being honest with y'all, I would love for at least once a year we meet in person once we have the ability to do so.
I agree. I concur. I think, you know, if possible, agreed upon, we can meet once a year. I think going to 3, again, not for the sake of just reducing it, but to be in alignment with BHEC so that we're not doing work that's forced to have a standstill because we're meeting outside of their timeline. And as long as it's not a detriment or it doesn't affect the effectiveness of what we're able to do and help the staff do or staff help us do, I think it's a good course of action to follow.
Okay. Does anybody have any strong objections to triennial meetings? Please feel free to be honest. Look, I'm protective of y'all's time, and once I received assurances that we were not going to have a material decline in our efficiency and our level of responsiveness, my inclination is to say, hey, if we can give everybody a day back, I'd like to do that. We're all volunteers, and I am protective of your time, and you know, just very motivated and attentive board members means we are a better board. And if just kind of giving you one of these days back, and we can still operate as well as I feel we are operating right now, I would do it. So, and that's just how I feel about it. So really, if you will look in your packet under item 16, or actually I think it's at the bottom, we do have a proposed calendar. So that is the other point of consideration here. If you can take a look at the differences in the calendar, and it's effective in October of this year?
Yep.
Yeah, starting in October. This is when this would take effect. So is there anything that kind of sticks out as being problematic? Yes, Vanessa?
Yeah, I'm mute.
I don't know why I keep doing that today. If we move to every 4 months, will that affect the board's reputation or the board's influence or anything with the public, like the people that are on the call today? Would they sort of have such a long delay before they can hear from us or interact with us? Would that impact them in any way that any of you all think might hinder us from delaying our meetings? Just asking from their perspective.
Well, it would delay a public comment for 30 days, as we'd be meeting every 4 months instead of every 3 months. But anything sufficient as far as reaching staff is, during the normal work hours. Anything about an application that doesn't require a full board appeal, which would first go to committee, which the committees can meet as often as they like. I do complaints at least 2, if not 3 Wednesdays a month. And I know Janie does a fair amount as well. So those get wrapped up pretty quickly. Most everything we're doing now is outside of the called meeting. So, it will arguably, create a 30-day slowdown for any type of rule approvals. But that's a year-long process anyway. So I think it's a drop in the bucket. And like we mentioned earlier, BHEC only has 3 meetings. So there will still be, we still have to go to the BHEC meeting to get the rule approved. So other than a public comment, which people can send in written public comments, they can call and let us know their thoughts and feelings anytime they'd like. Really, this is the only thing that's not happening. There's just now, instead of every 3 months we do this, it's every 4 months. That's about it. And we still have the ability to call a meeting whenever we want. We always still have that. The chair can easily just say, hey, Christina, 30 days from now, there's an LPC meeting, round up the troops. Let's get the Avengers together, and boom, it's happening.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Taylor. That's a great explanation.
And also, if anything happens to Steve, I can call the meeting too. So if we just can't get a hold of him, I can do it for him.
Any other comments? I think that we do have to have a motion to adopt the new proposed meeting schedule. Is that correct?
I will make a motion, Mr. Chair, to adopt the new schedule listed in the packet and officially move to a triannual meeting arrangement.
I say,
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. We have a motion and a second. So I will entertain any sort of discussion regarding the proposed meeting schedule. The first change that would take effect is that we're still meeting on August 11th. But the meeting following that would now be October 13th. And at that point is when this would, for fiscal year 24, that's when this would take effect. And that, again, that is kind of following suit with the BHEC change. Like, if anybody has any anxiety about this, we can always change it. And especially, I don't think we'd change it, but we would get to a point where we say, we're having these special board meetings, this kind of bonus meeting. We really do need 4 of these. Let's take a look at the schedule and revisit this decision. That's kind of what I settled on. If it's not working, we can always do something to fix it. So, any discussion regarding the motion in the second? Okay, all in favor of adopting the new triannual meeting schedule, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Okay, and I believe that's everybody.
Yep.
Okay, Thanks, everybody. And again, just a side note, if you have any objection to trying to meet in person once a year, please let me know. Otherwise, I think that's the ideal. Once everything is set up here in Austin and we can do it, I mean, it would be great for everybody to get together, and Taylor Counseling Group is always up for sponsoring happy hour. And it would be fun to visit with everybody socially. All right, Christina, we kind of run through item 17, announcements and other items on the schedule.
Yes, so I have provided the list of all the upcoming conferences, BHEC meetings, and the next full board meetings. So next one coming up as Texas Mental Health Counselor Association Conference is tomorrow, April 29th, and that was in Fredericksburg. BHEC will be on May 23rd. Our next LPC full board LPC meeting is going to be August 11th. Then we have BHEC meeting again August 15th. Then we have the Association of Mental Health Professionals Conference, October 19th. I believe that one's in Richmond. Is that how you say it? Richmond by
Texas.
Dallas? Yeah, okay.
Outside of Houston, I think.
Oh, is it? Okay. And then Texas Counseling Association Conference will be November 1st through 3rd. And I think that one's in Houston, but I'm not 100% sure on that one.
I just looked it up. It is Houston.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we have a lot going on later, throughout this year. But all that information is there. So you guys can look up these other conferences, and if it's something that maybe you feel you want to be a part of or join, and there's some really great helpful information from them as well. And then following the BHEC and LPC board meetings, and I'll update the LPC meeting list once we end this meeting.
Okay, finally, personal announcements, babies, grandbabies, professional accomplishments, anything to add? I like learning about y'all as individuals. So
Dr. Taylor announced it at the top of our meeting, but I am honored to have been selected by Mental Health America of Greater Dallas to receive one of their memorial awards this year in their PRISM awards for mental health advocacy, which we all do. So it's for all of us.
Fantastic, Janie, that's well deserved. Congratulations. All right. Board, as always, thank you so much for your time, for all the work that you put into this outside of the meetings. It's an honor to work with all of y'all. Thank you for everything that you do. Let's keep up the good work. On behalf of all the citizens of the great state of Texas, thank you for your service. Have a fantastic weekend, and we're adjourned.
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Thank you.